Song 9, Alberta Hospital. This is a tough one for me. I had when one of my friends heard "Trying to Be Free," they asked me if it was hard being that vulnerable, and I said I didn't feel like I'm totally comfortable with talking about that. But you should hear another song on the album. That's where I get real vulnerable, and that's this song. This is a song I didn't want to write. Really, I didn't. It's a place I don't like to visit, uh, and a place I've spent way too much time. So Alberta Hospital, if you don't live where I live, you wouldn't know this, but it's a mental hospital with a pretty bad reputation in that it's this really old collection of drab concrete buildings just outside of town. It's got these dark underground tunnels that connect the buildings. It houses the hardest people to help, the hardest to help mentally ill patients. It has padded rooms and steel locks and all those things. They actually used part of it, to film the movie Ginger Snaps, which is a horror movie. So it's a dismal place, and I've been there dozens of times visiting my mother. This is also the place where I found out my parents were getting a divorce, in one of the rooms of this hospital. Now, I don't talk about this a lot, but my mother has had severe mental illness for all of my life, as long as I can remember. She is still hospitalized from time to time. She undergoes shock therapy still, is on all sorts of meds. If you can think of a mental illness, she's probably been diagnosed with it at some point. I've spent hours of my life sitting with her, having nothing to say, just trying to be a presence in the room and maybe distract her from her mind going horrible places for as long as I can, which is often not that long. It's a hard place to be. Some of the hardest times were when I was actually in Bible college. So I got a bachelor's degree in theology from a charismatic school uh, who believes that God can and will heal you if you have enough faith. And I would hear that message over and over again when I was studying there. And some days I would literally hear that and then get on the city bus, travel an hour to go visit my mom in the hospital. And with that in the back of my mind, God will heal you if you have enough faith. And sometimes I'd have enough courage to pray, and often that would just make things worse. I mean, it never healed her, and and that left me wondering if it was because I didn't have the faith. Why would it make things worse? Because oftentimes mental illness and spiritual shame or fear, they kind of come as this package deal. It's tough. It's complicated. A lot of the song Alberta Hospital actually recalls a lot of physical details and memories from my visits to the place. The bolted steel doors, the cold smell, the smokers in their cloud-thin hospital gowns shuffling about with their dead eyes outside. One patient really did try and shoot my dad with a tape recorder when I was a kid. It was terrifying and very strange. So I grew up with this, and I often wonder kind of how I made it out at all. In my late teens, mid to late teens, I was basically living by myself while my mom was hospitalized for months at a time. It goes deeper than that, though. Several years ago, I finally admitted to myself and to my wife that this runs in my family and has made its way to me. And I sought out my own help for my own anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorder. Um, yeah, I got to a point where my brain was cycling endlessly to the point where I couldn't escape it, and I didn't know how I could go forward in life that way. I could barely function, and I was terrified on some level that the next stop for me could be a place like Alberta Hospital. Thankfully, through a combo of drugs and family and friends and faith, I'm doing well, really well most days, and I'm really grateful. But I can't say that Alberta Hospital doesn't kind of loom like a shadow over my story in some way. Um, this is a dark place on my journey, a place I hope I never have to go back to. But I think it was important to give voice to that darkness sometimes as well. And if you've had to deal with mental illness in your family or your own life, please know that you are not alone and not at all. And owning this part of yourself really takes a lot of its power to hold you down away. Shining a light, it's like shining a light on a monster hiding in the closet when you're a kid, and you realize it's just a bunch of clothes sitting on a chair in the corner or whatever. There's this revelation that comes with shining the light, telling the truth. So I hope you have people in your life that you can do that with. If this story tracks with you somehow, maybe you've been to Alberta Hospital. I'd love to hear if you have any stories about that place or places like it. Um, and yeah, if you want to talk about this stuff, I'm always willing. I'm much more open about my own journey, kind of one on one, than I am in just posts like this. So it's not something I hide, but it's also something that I think just should come out of relationship shared together. And yeah, so thanks for coming with me to this place. Um, the good news is we get to leave. We don't have to stay here. We survived. And the last track on the album is not as dark, and we are almost home. We're almost at the end of our journey together. I can't believe it, but day 10 is just around the corner. So I will see you there, and thank you for listening.